Pay close attention because what you're about to hear challenges the advice most people give about relationships. A woman who stops texting first, becomes quiet, and no longer appears in a man's daily notifications doesn't automatically lose his interest. In many cases, she ends up occupying his thoughts even more. While you've probably been told to keep reaching out, stay available, and make sure you're always noticed, the reality is often the complete opposite. When you stop contacting a man, you don't simply disappear from his mind. You become someone he keeps thinking about. Stay until the end, and you'll understand why this happens, what psychology says about it, and how some women naturally create deep curiosity and attraction without forcing anything. Before we continue, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and watch all the way through because what you'll learn could completely change the way men respond to you. Sometimes distance creates an impact that constant closeness never can. This is one of the least understood principles of attraction, yet it can be incredibly powerful. Many women assume that staying in touch all the time keeps them important in a man's life. They worry that if they step back, he'll quickly forget about them or shift his attention elsewhere. But human psychology often works in the opposite way. When you're always available, always replying immediately, and always present, your attention becomes expected. And once something becomes expected, it loses much of its mystery. People rarely become consumed by what they already feel certain they have. Instead, they keep thinking about what suddenly feels out of reach, uncertain, or possibly lost. The moment you stop reaching out, something begins to change inside his mind. Up until then, the pattern was familiar. He sent a message, you answered. He initiated contact, you responded. He always knew where he stood and believed your attention would be there whenever he wanted it. That consistency gave him confidence and certainty. But once the communication suddenly stops, that certainty disappears. He no longer knows what you're doing, what you're thinking, or whether you've moved on. He starts wondering if someone else has your attention now. Those unanswered questions create an empty space in his mind, and naturally, his thoughts rush in to fill it. Men are often driven to solve uncertainty. When something no longer makes sense, the mind keeps returning to it until it finds an explanation. From an instinctive perspective, people are naturally drawn toward what feels like it's slipping away rather than what remains constantly available. When you never change your pattern, there is nothing to figure out. But when you quietly step back, you introduce uncertainty, and uncertainty captures attention. This isn't about playing games or manipulating emotions. It's simply the way human psychology responds to unanswered questions. He may not even recognize why he's suddenly thinking about you more often. He just notices himself checking his phone, wondering why you haven't contacted him, replaying your last conversation, and searching for clues that explain your silence. As more time passes without an answer, those thoughts often become even stronger. Your absence also makes him recognize something he may have overlooked. While you were consistently present, he could enjoy your attention without considering that it might one day disappear. He could reply whenever it suited him because he believed you would still be there. Once that pattern changes, he starts questioning everything. Did he make a mistake? Did something happen? Have your feelings changed? Are you giving your attention to someone else? Since there are no immediate answers, his mind keeps circling back, trying to solve the mystery. That's how obsession often begins, not instantly, but gradually. It starts with simple curiosity, grows into constant thinking, and can eventually become a strong fixation. What makes this shift so powerful is that it changes the balance of attention. Early on, many men feel they're setting the pace. They decide when to text, when to call, and when to make plans. But when you stop being the one who is always available, that familiar sense of control disappears. Suddenly, he's the one waiting for a message, wondering what you're doing, and hoping to hear from you. For a man who genuinely values you, this unfamiliar position often doesn't push him away. Instead, it motivates him to move closer. As your silence continues, his imagination begins doing even more work. Without regular conversations to shape his view of you, his mind naturally starts filling in the missing pieces on its own. As time passes, he begins replaying the moments that made the strongest impression on him, the conversations that made him smile, the connection he felt, the memories that brought him joy all become more vivid. The ordinary disagreements, awkward moments, and small frustrations gradually fade into the background. Distance has a way of making the mind focus on what felt meaningful while overlooking what was routine. Instead of seeing you as someone he simply talked to every day, he starts seeing you as someone he might have lost. That possibility changes your value in his eyes. This is one reason some men return with far more interest after a period of silence than they ever showed when communication was constant. Your absence didn't make him forget you. It made your presence feel more significant. Many women worry that stepping back will send the message that they no longer care, causing a man to walk away. But when a man truly has genuine feelings, silence usually has the opposite effect. It catches his attention. It creates questions he can't easily answer. And those unanswered questions often push him to reconnect. A man who sincerely wants someone doesn't simply stop caring because she isn't constantly reaching out. More often, he loses interest when there's nothing left to pursue, when everything is handed to him effortlessly and all sense of mystery disappears. By stepping back, you naturally bring back that curiosity, and curiosity is one of the strongest drivers of attraction. This isn't about ignoring someone acting distant or playing emotional games. It's about recognizing your own worth and refusing to carry the entire relationship by yourself. Many women become exhausted because they feel responsible for keeping the connection alive. They're always the first to text, the first to suggest meeting, the one keeping conversations going, and the one investing most of the emotional energy. Over time, the man becomes comfortable with that arrangement. He stops putting in effort because he no longer needs to. But when you stop overextending yourself, you quietly communicate something important. You show that your attention isn't unlimited, your time has value, and your presence shouldn't be taken for granted. That's not being unkind, it's having healthy self-respect. And confidence rooted in self-respect is naturally attractive. There's also a well-known psychological principle at work called intermittent reinforcement. When something is available all the time, the brain begins to treat it as ordinary. But when access becomes uncertain, interest often increases. This pattern explains why people can become attached to unpredictable situations more than stable ones. Once you've shared your attention, your warmth, and your energy, then suddenly step back. His mind notices the difference. He remembers what it felt like to have that connection, and now that it's missing, he starts wanting it again. If he reaches out, it's not because you pressured him to do so. It's because his own curiosity and desire are pulling him in. Another important part of this dynamic involves pride and self-image. Most men naturally connect part of their confidence to their ability to attract and maintain the interest of someone they genuinely like. When your messages stop, he often starts questioning himself. Did something change? Did I make a mistake? Has she lost interest? Is there someone else? Those thoughts create discomfort, and people naturally want relief from uncertainty. One of the easiest ways for him to find answers is by contacting you. Without saying a single word, you've shifted the energy. Instead of you seeking his attention, he's now seeking yours. Women who truly understand this don't spend their energy trying to prove their value. They stop chasing validation, stop over-explaining themselves, and stop making themselves endlessly available. Instead, they invest in their own goals, friendships, passions, and personal growth. Ironically, that's what often makes them far more attractive. A woman who is genuinely fulfilled, genuinely occupied with her own life, and emotionally secure without depending on constant attention is uncommon. She naturally stands out. She doesn't create drama or play mind games. She simply values herself enough to protect her time and energy. That quiet confidence inspires respect. The women men often think about the most aren't necessarily the ones who are always within reach. They're the ones who maintain healthy boundaries, build meaningful lives outside of the relationship, and never sacrifice their identity just to keep someone's attention. Their absence isn't meant to punish anyone. Instead, it quietly communicates, My life is full, my time matters, and being part of it isn't something to be taken for granted. That message encourages a man to make a choice. If he truly wants to be part of your world, he'll make the effort. He'll reach out, stay consistent, and show through his actions that he wants to be there. Men often find themselves thinking more about a woman after she stops reaching out because silence creates emotional uncertainty. Uncertainty is very different from comfort, and too much comfort can sometimes reduce excitement. When you're always available, he knows he can contact you whenever he wants. Everything feels predictable, and there's little left to wonder about. But when you suddenly become quiet, that certainty disappears. He no longer knows where he stands, what you're thinking, or whether he still has a place in your life. Those unanswered questions create tension, and that tension keeps his attention focused on you. The easiest way for him to ease that feeling is by trying to reconnect. This effect becomes even stronger if he had started taking your presence for granted. If he grew used to your constant attention, then your absence feels like losing something he assumed would always be there. Human nature often places greater value on something once it seems out of reach. As long as you were always available, he never had to consider the possibility of losing you. But once you step back, that possibility becomes real. In his mind, you're no longer simply the woman who was always there. You're the woman who may have slipped away. That shift alone can completely change how he sees you and motivate him to pursue you with far more effort than before. One of the most powerful parts of this approach is that it doesn't require complicated strategies or perfectly written messages. You're not trying to impress him or carefully planning every interaction. You're simply choosing to focus on your own life instead of making someone else the center of it before they've earned that place. This isn't about punishing someone with silence or withholding kindness. It's about having standards and recognizing that your attention, your time, and your emotional energy have real value. Those things should be shared with people who genuinely appreciate them. If stepping back gives him the chance to realize what he's losing, that's his opportunity. If he doesn't recognize it, you haven't failed. You've simply protected your own peace and avoided investing more energy where it wasn't being valued. Silence also sends another message without saying a single word. Confidence. A woman who quietly moves forward without demanding explanations, creating drama, or seeking constant reassurance demonstrates a level of self-confidence that stands out. She doesn't depend on someone else's validation to feel secure. She doesn't need endless conversations to prove her worth. She simply continues living her life. That quiet confidence is attractive because it's uncommon. Men notice it, respect it, and are often drawn to it because someone who isn't chasing their approval naturally becomes more intriguing. Another important benefit is that it reveals the truth about a man's intentions. If his feelings are genuine, your silence is likely to motivate him to reach out. He'll wonder what changed, check on you, and make an effort to reconnect. But if he was only enjoying the attention you gave him without wanting anything deeper, he may simply disappear as well. As disappointing as that can feel, it also gives you something valuable: clarity. Instead of spending weeks wondering how he feels or trying to decode mixed signals, his actions provide the answer, and having a clear answer is always better than living with uncertainty. That's why women who understand the value of stepping back don't feel the need to chase, beg for attention, or convince someone to care. They know that genuine interest always shows itself through consistent action. If a man truly wants to be part of their life, he'll make the effort. If he doesn't, they continue moving forward without losing themselves in the process. That mindset is incredibly freeing because it removes the pressure of trying to force a connection that isn't developing naturally. Instead of constantly checking your phone or analyzing every message, you simply keep building a life that makes you happy. trusting that the right person will meet you there. Another reason men sometimes become preoccupied after a woman pulls away is that it changes the sense of control they may have felt early in the relationship. In the beginning, many men believe they're deciding the pace of the connection, when to call, when to text, and how quickly things progress. But when you stop reaching out, that familiar pattern changes. Suddenly, they no longer know what to expect, and that loss of certainty forces them to examine their own feelings more honestly. They may reach out because they want answers, because they want to understand what happened, or because they hope to reconnect. By then, however, the balance has already shifted. The key difference is that this isn't about pretending to be difficult or unavailable. There's a huge difference between acting hard to get and naturally having a full, meaningful life. One is an act, the other is simply who you are. You're not pretending to be busy. You genuinely have priorities. You're not acting as though you have choices. You've built a life filled with opportunities and meaningful relationships. You're not forcing yourself to appear unaffected. You truly understand that your value doesn't depend on receiving attention from one particular man. That authenticity is what makes this approach so powerful. People can usually recognize when someone is performing, but genuine confidence, strong boundaries, and a fulfilling life are qualities that naturally draw others in. Another reason this kind of obsession can develop is that your absence leaves an emotional gap. When you were part of his daily life, he could text you, talk with you, and satisfy any curiosity he had. But once you stop reaching out, that connection is no longer available. His curiosity doesn't disappear. It simply has nowhere to go except into his own thoughts. He starts wondering where you are, what you're doing, who you're spending time with, and whether you're still thinking about him. Because there are no clear answers, those questions keep repeating in his mind. Over time, you stop being just someone he used to talk to and become an unanswered question that his mind keeps trying to solve. This also connects to another powerful human emotion, the fear of missing out. Many men dislike the idea of losing something valuable, especially if someone else might appreciate it instead. When your attention suddenly disappears, it's common for his mind to imagine different possibilities. He may wonder if you've moved on, if someone else is receiving the care and attention he once took for granted, or if he waited too long to make a real effort. Those thoughts can create urgency. Instead of assuming you'll always be there, he starts worrying that the opportunity may be slipping away. That concern often motivates him to reach out with more intention and consistency than he showed before. Women who understand this no longer waste their energy trying to convince someone to care. They don't over-explain themselves, repeatedly seek reassurance, or chase after mixed signals. Instead, they simply step back and pay attention to what happens next. If a man's interest is genuine, he'll notice the change and make an effort to reconnect. If he doesn't respond, that answer is valuable too. Either way, you gain something important. You either see renewed effort from someone who truly values you, or you gain the clarity to move forward instead of remaining stuck in uncertainty. Both outcomes are healthier than staying in a situation where you're giving far more than you're receiving. At the heart of all of this is self-worth. A woman who can stop reaching out without falling apart, constantly checking her phone, or depending on someone else's response for her happiness has built her confidence from within. She knows the qualities she brings into a relationship and understands they deserve to be appreciated. That inner confidence is what makes this dynamic meaningful. If you stop contacting someone only as a tactic while secretly waiting in desperation for them to respond, your actions and emotions won't be aligned. But when you genuinely believe your time and energy deserve mutual effort and you're sincerely focused on your own growth and happiness, that quiet confidence becomes noticeable. People can often sense when someone has emotionally moved forward, and that shift alone can make them reconsider what they may have overlooked. In the end, the women who stay on a man's mind are often the ones who naturally embody three qualities people are drawn to: mystery, independence, and self-respect. Constant availability removes much of the mystery. Chasing removes the challenge. Seeking validation at all costs can reduce the value others place on your attention. But when you step back with confidence, those qualities return naturally. You become someone he can't easily predict, someone whose attention isn't guaranteed, and someone whose value becomes much clearer once it's no longer freely available. That combination is difficult to ignore. It doesn't matter how confident he appears or how many options he believes he has. When someone who was once consistently present quietly walks away, it often leaves a much stronger impression than constant pursuit ever could. So that's the deeper reason some men become preoccupied after a woman stops contacting them. It isn't about manipulating emotions or playing games. It's about understanding how people respond to uncertainty, appreciating your own worth, and recognizing that sometimes stepping back says more than repeatedly trying to hold someone's attention. When you value yourself enough to stop investing where your effort isn't being matched, you give the other person the opportunity to reveal how they truly feel. And you also give yourself the freedom to move toward relationships built on mutual interest and respect. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever stepped back from someone and noticed that they returned with much more effort than before? Or is this a perspective you've only recently started to consider? Share your experience in the comments because your story might encourage someone else who needs to hear it. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel for more insights like this, and share it with someone who could benefit from this message. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.